Hey, Chicago, what do you say? This is the CHGO Cubs Podcast. Cody Delmendo, Ryan Herrera, Jared Wyllys in this week today. For the first time, and I don't remember last time I saw you, man.
It's been a little bit.
Good to see you.
I was on with Brendan last week, but it's been since Thanksgiving. That was the last time I was here in studio.
Yeah, it's been a little bit, but nice to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back, man. You picked a good day to come in because we're doing bowl predictions today, and you happened to be on our bowl prediction show back on January 3rd this year. It's almost a year ago.
About a year, yeah.
You know, Luke's not here, but whatever. He actually threw in some of his own bold predictions in the Slack channel. I'll read one of them for you when at the end. But
I hope it's the second one.
It's definitely the second one. So yeah, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, rate us on Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. We appreciate all support. Our last show of 2023, outside of Corey and Brendan.
Yeah, Corey and Brendan will have theirs tomorrow, but our last one in this studio.
Yeah, last one. What was your favorite part of the 2023 CHGO Cubs podcast?
The pitch clock. Pitch clock's still my favorite part of 2023.
The beer bats.
The beer bats
were fun.
Yeah, man. The friends we made along the way.
There you
go. All right. I see some of your comments. Gary, I have acknowledged, and I have seen, and I am not going to talk about it on this show because it's not important on this show. But I will eventually talk about it on the internet. It's very big of me to be here with a smile on my face right now. I'll just say that much. So Ryan's over here. He's probably enjoying this.
No, I'm not. Okay, listen. Okay, we're not gonna. I'm not. It's a bad situation.
It's a very bad, and I'm not saying that he thinks like he's saying that it's a good situation.
No.
He's laughing at me, and honestly, I don't really
in
blame
a purely basketball sense.
In a purely basketball sense, yes.
All right, but we won't.
But we're not gonna get into it. I know most of you don't want to hear that. So, all right, bold predictions for 2024. Yesterday. We did we looked back at our predictions of this year. Jared, you were really close with Bellinger on the homers. You said 30. He had 26, and you said that they'd make the second wildcard spot, which they should have. You would have been very, very right. But today we're going to predict for next season. So who wants to start? We're going to start with Jared?
I'll get us going because I'm starting with what's probably my most bold prediction. So I figure let's start with a big one. Speaking of Cody Bellinger, my prediction for 2024, again, bold prediction, is that not only will Cody Bellinger be on the Cubs in 2024, but so will Marcus Stroman.
Oh.
Not one, but both of those guys are going to return to the Cubs in 2024.
Why is that why do you think that's a possibility at this point?
So I think it's a legit possibility because, again, it's a bold prediction, but it's still something that I think could happen. And I'll start with Stroman because this kind of came from Brendan and I were talking about this on the show last week. And the more we talked about the Stroman thing, the more I don't know if I sort of talked myself into it, but I think there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, I don't think the market for Stroman has been super strong. His name has not come up really much at all. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the injuries in the second half made him something of a question mark for next season. And so teams aren't necessarily itching to go get him the way they might have been had the rest of the season gone the way that the first half did. So I think there's a chance as the offseason goes on, as we get into maybe even up to February, the Cubs could approach Marcus Stroman with something that's short term, maybe even as short as 2 years, but give him an opt-out after year one. So in a way, it's almost like a one-year contract and provide that opportunity to go out there and have another sort of prove-it season, even though Marcus Stroman doesn't necessarily need that. But I could see him going for something like that where he can return to familiar territory but still have the opportunity to go out and get another big contract like he's clearly hoping to do. So that's why I think there's a chance for Stroman. And he fulfills a need that the Cubs have. I don't think anybody would look at their rotation the way it's currently constructed and say, yeah, I feel good about this group. There's at least one hole there. So I could see the Cubs saying, again, later in the off season, let's talk to Stroman.
February.
And then Bellinger. Does anybody need to be convinced why Bellinger would be a good idea? I think we're all on the same page about that. The question isn't that. It's more does Bellinger feel that way? Is that what he's going to want? And I think there's a chance there too, because again, it's not been a super strong market for him either. A lot of that might have to do with the focus of the market has been on Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto. Now that those guys are signed, maybe we start to see movement on Bellinger, but I think some teams might balk a little bit because, he had a great bounce back year in 2023, but there's still the reality of the 3 seasons before that that just were not good. And so a lot of it might have to do with, do teams feel like we can take what we saw in 2023 and really trust it? So
that's what we
think
talked about.
The bold part for sure is if they both come back.
That it's both.
I think it's more likely that Bellinger is back instead of Stroman, but if they're both back, I think we would all be very surprised.
Yeah, and with the Bellinger thing, it's like what we talked about either yesterday or the day before on the show. It's going to be like, Scott Boras and Cody Bellinger's camp, they're at one level. That's where they want to go. Jed Hoyer and the Cubs camp are at a different level. It's definitely below probably what Scott Boras and them want to go. Boras isn't going to meet Jed and company at where they want. Jed's probably not going to meet Scott Boras and Cody Bellinger at what they want. It's going to have to be somewhere in the middle. Right. And if they can agree on a meeting point in the middle, then it could work out. That's where that realistic possibility comes from. It's just how much is Jed willing to go up? How much is Scott Boras willing to go down? Can they get to that middle ground? And that's remains to be seen, obviously, right? Like,
because they haven't really done anything yet this offseason to indicate either way what their approach is going to be.
Yeah.
And realistically, bringing on both of those guys puts them right at the first tier of the luxury tax. So if you're going to sign both of those guys, if your goal is to try to stay under that luxury tax or not go much beyond the first tier, those two pretty much puts you there. So, again, bold prediction, but
that's
possible.
That's pretty bold. It might be one of the bolder ones we have on the show today.
For sure.
Do you
start big?
Yeah. Do you want to run through your other two?
No, we're just go around.
All right. What was my first one? Oh, yeah, here it is. It's on the screen. My bold prediction, Christopher Morel hits 35-plus home runs. Maybe not like the boldest prediction, but he hit 26 this past season, tied for the team lead in home runs. He spent that first month of the season in AAA, so like maybe he could have gotten to 30 had he been up early enough. But I think it's something where it depends on what the Cubs do this offseason, right? Like I think we're more leaning towards Morel being on the Cubs at this point in the offseason, but his name is he's not a trade chip anymore, right? Like there's probably still packages that we're not thinking of that could include Christopher Morel in a trade. So it does depend on, if that's a possibility or who else the Cubs may still bring in this offseason, and if there's room for Morel to be playing every single day or DHing or whatever. It's he has the power. We know that if he's playing every day and hitting and maintains his consistency, because in his 2 first years, we've seen the inconsistency in his game, whether that's the plate approach, striking out too much, chasing, whatever it is. Like we've seen inconsistency in his game, so I think it also depends on him being more consistent at the plate, which as a young player, developing player, like I'm sure that's coming, right? Like I think he has that offensive upside. Will it manifest to 35-plus home runs this season? It could. Like I'm not putting my money on it. As Luke would say, I'm not going to put my house on it, but I do think 35 home and just we've talked about the Cubs needing to add power and consistent power to this offense because they did have 6 guys hit 20 home runs last year, but it still didn't feel like they had the consistent power that they needed to be, blowing teams out as Jed Hoyer once talked about. So I think if Morel can get to that 35-plus home runs, like that is a huge development for this lineup, for him obviously, but for the lineup and what they need to do to just be a more complete, upper echelon offensive team. So 35, maybe 40 would have been a little more bold, but
Edward thinks it's
40,
mid.
Everything is mid. But Edward's always against me though. He's
I don't necessarily agree with Edward. 35 homers for a guy who's never done that, for a guy who goes through his ups and downs. Like, I think that's the big thing for him is it's not that I think he needs to be more consistent. It's more of like he can't go through those 3-4 week stretches where he is just striking out 40% of play appearances and all that, because when he is going well, or even at just playing at an average level, he can be one of the best players on the team offensively.
And I think part of what makes it bold, too, is in order to get to 35 home runs, he needs to get a certain number of plate appearances.
Fair.
And a lot of that has to do with where you're playing him on defense, how many starts at DH he gets. We've talked a lot about Morel at third base. Do you try him as your full-time third baseman? Don't necessarily need to get into all that again, but just that's – so, Ryan, I'm going to – also, I think it is bold because he's got to get – I don't know what that number is, but there's a certain number of plate appearances that he has to have in order for 35 to even be realistic.
I will say that I think Counsell, if he is indeed on the team next year, I think Counsell will do whatever it takes to make sure he's in the lineup every day.
Well, that's something that he said at winter meetings. He has kind of earned that. Like, he has played himself into that guy that deserves every day at bat. So, there's obviously going to be different variables for Morel this season to even have the opportunity to reach 35 home runs. And, some of it's based on what the Cubs do, some of it's based on what Craig Counsell does, and some of it's based on what he's able to do. So, I think 35, a prediction of 35 home runs for a guy whose career high is 26, I think that's bold enough. Bold enough. Maybe not as bold as Bellinger and Stroman, but bold enough.
It's not bold. Our guy, the Godfather, he says bold prediction: Ricketts will still be cheap in 2024. Guys, you all think he's cheap. That's not bold. Come on, Godfather. That's not bold. You already think this anyway.
That's the general consensus.
You're just stating what you think is a fact. All
That's
right?
the general consensus in this chat. Also, Craig Brindle, bold prediction that I will finally admit that I'm actually Clark the Cub.
I like that. I needed that.
I needed that.
Plead the fifth on that.
Somebody, I'm trying to find it, but somebody's prediction was that, Garrett Johnson, someone from CHGO will throw out the first pitch next season.
Give it to Stuckmeyer.
It's got to be Stucky, right?
Stucky.
Yeah. I like
give
that
him
one.
the first pitch.
Maybe Corey, since he's a season ticket holder and he's giving them all that money.
That's a legit possibility.
Like, if we nominate Luke for the Cubs Hall of Fame and he gets in, then that's definitely a chance that he's throwing out the first pitch.
That's fair.
So we'll see.
Okay. I will go next. And I actually changed mine. Mine was actually related to Christopher Morel originally, but I changed it to PCA. I think PCA leads the team in stolen bases next year. My thinking is I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him till May, but I think he's going to spend most of the year on the team because his defense is elite. He is obviously has speed. So will he be able to get on base enough to even get the opportunity? I don't know. He doesn't have a major league hit yet, but I'm not freaking out saying that he's already a bust after 19 plate appearances or whatever it is. I do think that he will hit, and I do think that he will be towards the top of the lineup by the end of the year because that's what he projects to be as like a pro, like not necessarily your prototypical leadoff hitter, but like someone that you would want to set the table at the top of your lineup if he is anything close to what we hope he is. And maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid from Jim Callis Jonathan Mayo saying that he thinks he's going to win Rookie of the Year on the MLB Pipeline Predictions article they put out the other day. Maybe I'm just standing PCA because I've already seen enough people think that he is done after 19 at bats. We know what he is. Maybe I am, but also when Jared Banner said on The Score like 2 weeks ago that PCA has been in Arizona working with Dustin Kelly, it's good news. And as a Dustin Kelly stan, I think that PCA will be in the Rookie of the Year chase next year. So you can either say he's going to be top 3, he's going to be a finalist for Rookie of the Year, or he's going to lead the team in stolen bases. I think stolen bases is a little bit more bold just because Nico Horner is on this team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The Nico Horner thing makes it bold, but also, as you mentioned, the fact that he's probably not going to be on the Major League roster until Memorial Day.
Yeah, it could be May or like mid-May. It could be.
I think it'd be early May.
Yeah. Like when Morel and Mervis got the call.
I think it'd be something like that, just because unless he has like a Wisniewski-like spring training from last year, you know. But it's just like all we have to look at right now on December 28th is the 19 or 20 at-bats or play appearances that he had in September that weren't during consistent playing time, coming off the bench. Clearly was a little overpowered, and he has to be working on whatever it is the Cubs want to be working on right now for next season. I think that he has all, like, I know the Cubs aren't putting any expectations on him for next year, but they have to be doing everything they can to fix, not necessarily fix him, but help him get to that next level.
Yeah, I think. Well, I was gonna say, sorry, you guys both mentioned Nico, and 43 stolen bases, most since Juan Pierre in 2006. Like, I don't see that aggressiveness coming out. I don't see Nico's aggressive going down from where he was this past season. If anything, I think he might steal even more bases. With Pete Crow Armstrong, and again, it was a very small sample. I'm not even talking about like his at-bats or anything. As we saw when he got those opportunities to pinch run late in the season or whatever, it just felt like a little overzealous in a way. Like he was just ready to go. Like, I mean, you saw on some of those in Colorado, he got thrown out. There's the one in Colorado where he got thrown out trying to steal second. That just kind of sticks in my mind as just like a maybe not the best read, and got thrown out pretty easily at second. I think part of him, if he's going to lead the team in steals, is going to have to be, can he kind of just pick his spots more? Obviously, he's going to have to get on base to be able to, like Nico Hoerner got on base a lot, and that's how he was able to steal so many bases. Like, you have to get on base to steal bases. Can Pete Crow Armstrong get the hits? Will he have the plate approach to take his walks? Will he get on base enough to be able to get in that position? And can he pick the right moments? Because he has the speed, he has the instincts. We see it. Can he pick the right moments to take advantage of the situation and steal those bases? That goes into obviously a young player's development. He's 21. I don't think he'll be 22 till March. Like, he's still a very young guy, but if he's going to lead the team in steals, a lot of that development and just learning the game at the big league level is going to have to come pretty fast, especially if he's not up to start the season or even the first month of the season. We don't know when he's going to be up, if he will be. So it could be even a shorter amount of time to be able to get that done.
I'm laughing because Garrett says his prediction is Nick Madrigal hitting more than 2 home runs next year. If he had the speed, I'd be like, he could get like a Tony Campana inside the Parker. But
he did hit 2 this year, though.
He did hit 2.
The one at
the Morel walk-off.
Morel's walk-off was started by
He did come close to hitting one at London, too. I think it was off the wall.
That's right.
He did come very close. There was a few where he hit off the wall. Yeah. Like, he needs to get one up in the air on a day the wind's blowing out more often.
Oh, bold prediction from the Godfather. It's a big one. He will try to go to a CHGO takeover in 2024.
Love it.
My understanding, we're trying to do 3 next year. So
there we go.
So 3 opportunities.
Right,
3 opportunities in 2024.
He was actually in one of the the happy hours we had. He was hanging out with us in that happy hour.
Nice.
So
we need to do more.
We'd like to meet the
There's
Godfather
a New Year's resolution for us at the end from 2024. Do more happy hours.
More happy hours. Yeah.
And
I like it.
And meet the Godfather.
And meet the Godfather and the Godmother. That'd be great.
All right.
So Jared, you're next.
So we're back to me. I think my second prediction was probably the least bold, maybe of anybody's. But so I went with Justin Steele throwing over 185 innings. Cody, I know you predicted 180 for 23, and he came just shy of that. I think, what was it, 175? So 185, I think, is Brendan.
Brendan just left a comment, said, I tune in, and the first thing I hear is you talking about Nick Madrigal's power. Yes, Brendan.
Absolutely.
Brendan, we've spent the first half hour talking about just that.
Yeah.
So,
Just that.
no other topic.
We were talking about Eric Sogard, too.
Sogard, yeah.
We are.
But yeah, so I figure 185 innings is 2 more starts than he had in 2023. So not a super bold prediction, but I think bold enough because it's assuming he stays healthy all season, doesn't have any kind of issues, which for any starting pitcher is always a question mark. And I think bold potentially 2, because if they are in a playoff run, they might scale back some of the innings later in the season just to save the arm for October. So again, admittedly, my least bold prediction. But yeah, going Justin Steele, 185 innings, and I think he's still in that Cy Young consideration in 2024.
I think when you look at it, it's when you think about it, maybe even like because he didn't reach 180, he was 175 this last year, so that's the way starting pitchers are going. Like I think this past season was like the average start was under 5 innings, something like that. So if you think about that, you think about besides a minimum stint on the IL, Steele was in like really good health the entire year, right? And he finished, he had a top 5 finish in NL Cy Young voting without reaching even 180 innings. So if you really think about it, just the direction starting pitching is going, like it just feels like every year, like the threshold for like what's a very good number of innings to pitch is like going down. I mean, I think 5 pitchers in baseball hit 20 or 200 innings last year.
And that used to be the bar to try to reach was 200 innings. That was your number one starter. One of the things you looked for was, can this guy give us 200 innings? I don't think it just doesn't happen anymore.
So that's what I'm saying. So like the bar, it feels like it continues to get lower every year. So now we're not just talking about him reaching 175 innings again or even 180. That's a whole, if you're looking at like average starts, that's a whole 2 more starts that he's making and being that, and again, pretty much having full health for the entire year. I don't think that's may not be the boldest prediction, because if you're an ace, if you're a Cy Young candidate, like you should, I mean, maybe you should be expected to be able to hit that, but I don't think it's like an easy prediction at the least either.
Yeah. No, I would say in some aspects it can be bold just because it's not like Justin Steele has proven to be a consistent starter for multiple years. Like last season was his first full year as a starter, and he was consistent the entire year. Now the next question is, can he do it again?
Keep doing that,
right? And I think we all believe he can. I'm not saying I'm questioning it. I'm just saying that has to be the next thing on his keeping receipts for motivation. Right? For anyone who thinks that that this past season was a fluke, the fact that he wasn't even a Cy Young finalist, which probably those last 2 starts of the season probably is a big reason why he wasn't. Like the guy has plenty of motivation going into 2024, I think. But again, 185 innings is a lot in today's Major League Baseball. I mean, that's why I said last year 180 was bold, because it's not like so many people are going 200 anymore even.
Right.
So I think it's a good bar to set. So.
Yeah, it would be to say it would be great to see him reach 185 innings is valid. Like, I think, I don't think you can expect it. But I think you can say it would be a really good season for him. Other things considered, obviously, as well. But 185 innings for him would be a really good season for Steele, because not a lot of guys are pitching much more than that these days. Anyway,
it's a short list for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. My second one, bringing it back, recycling a prediction from last year, but I think it's still pretty bold. Cubs pitcher throws a no-hitter.
I'm curious to who we think could be that guy. And I automatically just want to jump straight to Cade Horton at some point. We think he's going to make his debut, but
I don't think Cade Horton throws a no-hitter this year. I think that would be absolutely. That's not even bold. Though. That's like a pipe dream kind of thing.
Yeah, it totally is. A pipe dream.
I don't know. I mean, you had Smiley last year, 7 perfect innings in April.
Who would have guessed that?
Right? Yeah. You had Marcus Stroman on Memorial Day. 1 hitter. He gave up his lone hit to start the 7th inning, and he walked a guy, but that was it. 9 shutout innings, 1 hit against the Tampa Bay Rays, which again, I said it yesterday, but I think that's the best pitching performance for any Cub all year. Kyle Hendricks, 7 2/3, no-hit innings before giving up a hit in San Francisco. I mean, you even look I think Tyone had 5 or 6 no-hit innings in Detroit or something like that. Right? But we're seeing that even these really, really good pitching performances by Cubs still don't turn into no-hitters. No-hitting, there have been plenty of no-hitters in baseball history. It's still a really hard thing to do. Yeah. So, and we're not talking about the Cubs having elite starting pitching either, a overall rotation where you're looking at it and this elite. Steele, could he get there? Potentially. We see him and his ability to limit hard contact, barrels, home runs, all that kind of stuff. That works in his favor for that. But he doesn't have, like, elite swing and miss that would also work in his favor. Kyle Hendricks is another year older at this point. Can he even repeat what he did in San Francisco to even get close to that, right? Like, they don't have that Memorial Day Marcus Stroman anymore right now, unless obviously your prediction comes true. Then he may get back to that. So they don't, like, the pitching at right now, I can't look at it and say, like, oh, this guy's the most likely to throw a no-hitter, because it's a hard thing to do in general. But you still have guys like Justin Steele has to, go out and prove that he's still, like, that last year wasn't like a anomaly. Like, he could be that guy, right? Mm-hmm. And you just have other guys. You're going to have young guys come up like Cade Horton most likely and Ben Brown that they're going to have to prove what they can do in the rotation. So I think overall it's just like it can happen, right? Like, I think we saw even last season times where unexpectedly guys got close or guys got deep into games with no hitters going. They weren't able to finish it off. But I think, I don't know, that's my bold prediction. I think it could happen this year. Will it happen? I wouldn't put my house on it. But
Gary says it'd be Shane Bieber, which is
Shane.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, he's not on the Cubs, Gary.
So
not yet. Not yet.
Right.
He's predicting that Shane Bieber will be on the team.
That's like a dual prediction right there.
That's even bolder than mine.
So if you had to pick somebody, though.
If I had to pick.
Like, you got to put a name out there. Who is it?
On the Cubs right now.
Yeah, currently on the Cubs. Not taking into, like, maybe they re-signed
Trade
Stroman, the
or
Shane
signings.
Bieber trade. Yeah.
I'm going to go with
It's tough.
It is.
Jameson Taillon.
I like it.
Is
I
my
like
bold
it.
I like that.
I think what we saw from Taillon at the end of the season looked a lot more like what the Cubs think they have in Jameson Taillon.
Yeah.
He seemed to be finding more consistency. He was getting deeper into games. The ERA was coming down, all that good stuff. And like I said, like, he had the one start against Arizona at home that was 6 no-hit innings, I want to say. He had another start in, I think it was Detroit, that was 5 or 6 no-hit innings before he gave up a game-tying grand slam the next inning, whatever it was. So, like, he had the New York, he had
He looked phenomenal
in the
New
Bronx.
York.
He had, I think, some kind of no-hit run before giving up his first hit.
Yeah.
Like, he's had those starts where he was getting the swing and miss was all right. The sweeper was good. The fastball looked good. Like, he looked like what the Cubs thought they were getting in Taillon. He had his opportunities last year where he wasn't able to finish it off, but I think he's got good stuff, and if he can be just a better, more consistent pitcher this season, which I believe he has the ability to, and we've talked about on the show, we all kind of feel that way. He may be my pick for a guy that has the right mix of stuff and pitchability to be able to do that.
I'll tell you, I'll tack on a bonus prediction right now, just
big of you,
on the spot, and put me on record. 2024 will be the Jameson Taillon Redemption Tour.
The Revenge Tour. Okay.
The Revenge Tour. Jameson Taillon 2024.
Well, that's a good.
It's gonna silence the doubters.
That's a good transition into my second one, and it's that Keegan Thompson gets back to 2022 form, baby. All right. I saw Gary's chat in there earlier. He says he thinks Keegan Thompson's getting traded. I mean, he could get traded. His value's very low right now.
I mean, he technically he could get back to 2022 form for another team.
Yeah, he could. Yeah.
Technically, that would.
And if that happens, I will let you know. All right.
Yeah, you didn't say with the Cubs.
But I'm still a believer. I know last year was bad, but you don't have a year like he had in 2022, and the way that the kind of pitcher that he is, the way the Cubs used him. I don't know how he could go from that to what last year was. So I think a full off season working on all those issues and stuff, I think that benefits him. And it's bold because I don't think anyone fully believes that at all. Hell, I barely even believe it. But if someone's got to stand on the hill for someone and it's Keegan Thompson, I will be that guy. Credit to me.
Yeah, I mean, that would be huge for the Cubs.
Yeah, it would be huge for the bullpen, that's for sure.
We saw how important he was to that bullpen in 2022 in a season where obviously the Cubs weren't competing for much, but he was that multi-inning. Is that guy they trusted to go out? Like, if they needed him to go out in the 6th inning or 7th inning and finish the game, like, he looked like that guy. And 2023 was a step back for him. So, but what I'm saying is we've seen it. We've seen Keegan Thompson be that level that he was in 2022, and it would be, I don't know if he can because there were issues that he obviously had to work on.
Yeah.
But if he can for that team, that's a huge addition to the bullpen that we know. I think that would be a huge addition that we know could have helped that team at the end of the season.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We each have one more, but we should probably do these ads, and then we can.
All right, let's do those ads.
Ryan, tell us about CIRCA.
All right, let me get this.
And how awesome it is. I can tell you as well. I mean, I was on CIRCA last night, having the time of my life. Jalen Brunson, over 6.5 assists. Boom.
Some good stuff with CIRCA, huh?
The $50 to $500 challenge is now at $97.61. We ride tonight.
There you go.
CHGO bets after this show.
Yeah, so CIRCA Sportsbook, that's where Cody's talking about. They got tight money line splits and a low hold model. Games will strive to be minus 110 split on the CIRCA Sports menu, unlike other sportsbooks, which may use minus 115 or minus 120 splits. CIRCA Sports keeps as little money as possible on large market bets, especially compared to other books. We have to talk about the high app limits, the transparency. CIRCA Sports does not limit players based on their winnings. Every player has the same limits, unlike other books who do limit winning players. They encourage bettors to download and explore all sports betting apps available to compare the lines from each sportsbook. And this may be Cody's favorite thing about CIRCA Sportsbook is the customer service.
Oh, I love it.
There are real people behind the CIRCA Sports brand who resolve issues in a timely fashion, unlike other books who use chatbots. All aspects of the app are being run by the same team that runs the main CIRCA Sportsbook at CIRCA Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. So go download the CIRCA Sports Illinois app at circasports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. Also be on the lookout for CIRCA events, watch parties, and tailgates. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER, text GAMB to 833-234, or visit areyourreallywinning.com.
If maybe sports betting isn't your thing and daily fantasy happens to be your thing, well, it's a little bit of both. Prize Picks, I think that Prize Picks is a mix of both. And that's why I love Prize Picks, because it gives me a mix of both, right? It's the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you against the numbers. And that's when to me, it's a little bit of a sports betting look outside. More of a sports betting look than DFS, because DFS, you're usually going up against people, right? And it comes down to whoever chooses like that random person that no one else chooses or whatever. This, with Prize Picks, it's literally just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is the most fun I've had, up to 25 times my money this basketball season. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. Do it in 60 seconds. Bulls, Pacers tonight. Maybe a little Kobe White action. Maybe a little DeMar DeRozan action. I did Patrick Williams the other night and got really pissed off because it didn't work out, so don't do Patrick Williams. Maybe Tyrese Halliburton, because I think you have to use two guys from a different team. You can't just use all Bulls players. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Again, you can do it in 60 seconds. But one of my favorite things about Prize Picks, Jared, because I haven't told you this, I've been telling Ryan this all week, is they offer a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. All right, so for football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So say you take, Joe Flacco tonight in the, I think it's the Jets that play tonight, in the Browns.
Jets-Browns, I think so.
What a disgusting game, by the way. But if you did take Joe Flacco and he, gets hurt because he's old and he's just, I can't believe he's still playing football. If you have him in your Prize Picks entry, they won't hold it against you. You get your money back. Honestly, it's one of my favorite things about Prize Picks. So go to prizepicks.com/CHGO and use code CHGO for a first deposit match up to $100. So you deposit $100 and they'll give you an extra $100 to then bet on basis, basically like for an extra free $100 that you can use whatever on Prize Picks for, which is incredible. PrizePicks.com/ sportsbook.com/CHGO and use code CHGO. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Okay. Well, we got our last bold prediction.
Want to start it off, Jared?
Yes. So,
Final one.
going a little more bold than maybe my second prediction.
It's pretty bold considering where we sit right now.
Right, and I think this is what makes
yelled
it
at.
bold is do I think the current roster wins the division? No. But this is based on what I expect will be a busy January. So my final prediction for 2024 is that the Cubs are going to win the division. Not just I predicted second wild card last year. I'm going bigger this year. They're going to win the division.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that is because we've seen the rest of the division get weaker. The NL Central has kind of turned into one of the softer divisions in baseball. Doesn't hold a candle to the AL Central, but not super tough competition there. So they can benefit from the fact that it might only take 84 wins to win the division this next year. But also, I think that this is reasonable because I just don't believe that they are going to stand pat with what they have. I think that there are, whether it's free agent signings like we talked about earlier, trades like we've alluded to, I think there are moves coming because this is a team that
is on the rise.
They're on the rise. They went out and they did the very, very bold thing already of they got a new manager. I mean, and you went big with Craig Counsell. That's a major move. You don't do something like that if you aren't expecting to be a contending team as soon as possible. So I'm going big. They're division winners.
Yeah, I mean,
I was
going to say just and to even I think looking even more at your point that yes, I think the NL Central is one of the weaker divisions in baseball, but like the Cardinals have made additions, and whether those pitching additions are gonna get them back to the level they were a couple years ago, who knows? Guys like Lance Lynn, who knows if he's the guy that he was for the Sox a few years ago, but I mean, I think the Cardinals still have plenty of talent on that team that could get them back to where they were a couple years back. Like the Brewers maybe taking a step back, but they do themselves still have talented players. But then you look at the Reds and the Pirates and like where their farm systems are at, their young players are starting to bring up. Like they may, especially the Reds, might be a surprise team in that division race.
That's the team I think if I had to pick one team to watch out for the most, it's Cincinnati.
I think Cincinnati's there, and like the Pirates, before obviously Cruz went out, like they were, I think early in the season they were in that division race, and obviously that fizzled out relatively quickly. But they have the young players. Brian Reynolds is still there, who's still a good player. Like they have players that they might surprise some people this year and be in that race, maybe even longer than we think. So I think when you look at it, and if they make the right additions, like it does feel like the Cubs should be able to go into the season as the favorite to win the NL Central. But I do think obviously they have to make those right moves. And I think they'll have to hold off some surprisingly good teams in this division. May not be world beaters, World Series favorites or anything like that, like you might get in the obviously the West and the East in the National League. But I think the rest of that division there will be good enough teams to really battle the Cubs for that division title if it gets down to it. We both mentioned the Reds. I think they will be one of those surprise teams that are, because they were good this year too, obviously. Right. They were right in the playoff race to end the season too, and I think they can be in that division race again this year too. And
I think it would be dangerous to assume that the Cardinals are going to be as bad as they were again.
Yeah. I was basically going to say what Ryan said. I actually think the NL Central is on the rise. Like,
yeah, I think it's on the rise.
Perhaps like Milwaukee is the team that right now, as we sit here, feels like they are doing some sort of a reset, but as we see here right now, Burns and Willie Adames are still there. They still have Yelich. They still have Contreras.
Garrett Mitchell's back.
Garrett Mitchell. And they just gave Churio that huge extension. Mm-hmm. Like, they clearly have high belief in him. The pitching, like with Woodruff being out for all of next year, they already non-tendered him. And if they're not in it at the end of July, they're probably going to trade Burns and probably even sell off some more. But that first half of the next season will be interesting when it comes to the Brewers, because even though they lost Counsell, they still have guys there that have helped them somehow, some way win baseball games. And it's the most mind-blowing thing that I've never understood. And you guys mentioned the Reds. Like, I think the Pirates are going to be better too. Like
a dark horse for sure.
Yeah, they definitely played better at the end of the year. They played spoiler to the Cubs. You saw Brian Hayes, I feel like, take a bigger step. Cruz is going to be back for them next season, and I think he's a generational talent type guy. Brian Reynolds obviously is a really good baseball player. The thing with them, I think, is pitching, and obviously they ain't spending any money, so it's like a lot of potential, and they have one of the better farm systems, all these things. Like, you don't really know what's going to happen, but I just don't think this division is going to be like some cakewalk like it has been, and which makes me angry that the Cubs haven't been dominating it the last 5 years, but whatever.
No, I think we can all agree that the Cubs can position themselves by opening day to be the favorites in the division, and like it's theirs for the taking, but
it won't be easy.
It won't be easy. I think this division is going to be.
It's not a gimme.
Yeah, and it may not be. It's not. They're not going to have all the top end teams in this division, but I think all these teams. I mean, we see the NL Central match up so well against each other for every year. Whether it may not be all 5 teams, but a lot of these teams match up well against each other. They are rivals, proximity, whatever. Like, I think it'll be a tough Central, and while I do think the Cubs can win this division for sure, I don't think it's going to be as easy as maybe it might seem on paper going into opening day.
It won't be as easy as it should have been like last year or even the year before in some aspects if they had, maybe invested a little bit more in free agency. Whatever. I'm not trying to go down that rabbit hole.
It'll be an interesting division race, I think, this year. So I think that's a good prediction right there. Yeah. Let's see, my last one. Nico Horner earns his first All-Star nod. We talked about it yesterday, Cody, or the other day, whatever day it was.
2 days ago.
Kind of talking about like who could be take that Justin Steele breakout type season next year. I think Nico Horner, he's obviously a Gold Glove defender, right? Like, he won the Gold Glove at second base this year. We know how valuable he is defensively, and the fact that he was, by WRC plus standards, basically league average, and still, ended the season last year with higher wins above replacement on Fangraphs at least than the Ozzie Albies and Luis Arias, who were the All-Star finalists. And I think Albies actually was the starter. No, Arias was the starter. Albies was on the All-Star team. Had a higher F4 than both those guys. I think, and we talked about it, Nico obviously has to get to that level, has to improve offensively, develop more offensively, and I think that's still coming. But I said that, my prediction is kind of like he's going to have that breakout guy where nationally he starts to get talked about, right? Like, we all sitting here know how important Nico is to this Cubs team and, the future. I think nationally is when he starts getting that recognition of, like, this guy's a really, really good player, one of the best players at his position in the National League. I think this is where we see that breakout season for Nico. And so, All-Star, I said he could be in that conversation for, like, All-Star caliber player. But if I'm going bold, right, bold prediction, he's going to make his first All-Star team this year. He's going to be an All-Star. The Cubs, who know how many they might have, but Nico, bold prediction, is going to be one of them.
I think I said earlier that I thought that my Justin Steele prediction was the least bold. I don't know, because this to me seems like if I were picking things that I expect to happen, like legitimately expect to happen, I would put Nico Horner as an All-Star on that, because he was getting some mention even last year from teammates.
Yeah.
I think it was Marcus Stroman who kind of went out of his way to say, like, hey, it's not right that Nico Horner didn't get an All-Star nod when we talked to him about it. So, I don't even know if this is bold. I think it's just a Nico Horner All-Star.
Well, I mean,
prediction.
Yeah, I don't think it's the boldest of my predictions by any means, but I also will say, like, last year was
not a given, but
he's only, like, just kind of showing he can be healthy for a full season. Like, that was still obviously a question mark from going into last season. And I think the thing that works against him is just his offensive numbers. Offense just runs baseball. Like, there's a reason why I said, like, he ended the season higher wins above replacement than the other two guys at second base that did make the playoffs for the All-Star game for the National League. And it's because I think his offensive numbers were just not nearly as good as those guys were. And I think he can be a better than league average hitter for sure. But, like, that's, again, it just goes to, can he be that offensive player to obviously defense is his calling card, right?
Right.
But can he show he's got the offensive game to get to that all-star level? I think that's a big
to pair that with the defense that's already there.
I think that's a big task for him this season because whether right or wrong, offense just kind of draws the eyeballs.
Yeah, it's true.
Something more bold would be Nico and Dansby starting the All-Star game together in the middle, up the middle.
I like that.
That's a little bit more bold for
A little
you.
more bold.
And I would be absolutely here for that.
So I did something. Luke had his bold predictions in our little Slack channel. And
You mean his like non-serious ones?
Yeah, so I did make a little graphic if you guys wanted to read that to the people. Here, I can put it
Cody
up.
still has his
I still
last
have
Oh, you
one
still have
more.
your last one?
Cody's
Yeah, I have
got
one
one
more, and
more.
then we
I'm
can
all
share
over
it.
the
That's a good
place.
tease. We kind of teased it earlier.
Yeah, we'll
but,
tease it.
yeah.
But that's a good tease because Luke's bold predictions for next year
They're
in
great.
general are
They're good.
They're elite.
Yeah, my bad, though. We'll finish out Cody's.
You're fine. So my last one is kind of related to what Ryan said about Nico and in terms of like our, who can be that next Justin Steele for next season. The other day I said, I would love to dream about Seiya Suzuki being in the MVP race, like finishing top 7 in the MVP race. So you can take that or you can take what I have on the screen here, hits 30 homers. He hit 14 in year 1. He hit 20 last year. So I'm asking for 10 more. And if he hits 30 homers, I think the Cubs are winning the division. And I think that he probably is at least somewhere in the conversation. Maybe gets an MVP vote or something like that. It's hard for me to go that far when he hasn't even made an all-star team yet. So I'm a little afraid of like who would get the most credit for the Cubs if the Cubs are a really good team and, we're talking about the MVP conversation, right? So 30 home runs, he's never done it. He did it in Japan. And I think the big thing, like we said the other day, is consistency. He's got to be on the field, and he can't go through these 1-2 month slumps. I mean, he was great in May when he came back from the oblique injury. Then he slumped for 2 months. David Ross sat him for like 4 days, and then suddenly he turned into the best hitter in the National League the last 2 months of the year. He's just got to be consistent. And I think if he's consistent, if he's on the field, not hurt, and in the middle of that lineup, I think he hits 30 home runs next year. You want me to be a little bit more bolder? 35, whatever. I couldn't decide. It's just the fact that he hasn't even came close to 30 yet seems pretty bold to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was it, 14 and 22, right? And then
Right.
20 last year. So
Yeah. So that's a big jump up
Yeah.
to 30.
It's a solid jump for sure. But like as we've talked about, like if we get more of that, more consistently, that last 2 months of Suzuki in 2024, we could totally see.
Yeah.
I think 30 is realistic, right? But that's about the consistency, and that's something we've talked about, just being the more consistent hitter that the Cubs want
It's
him to be.
bold
and
to
hope he can
think
be.
that Seiya Suzuki will be consistent because he hasn't necessarily been consistent his first 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, all the data we have on him as a major league player is that he has his cold spells. He hasn't been the consistent guy. So I don't even disagree. Like expecting him to all of a sudden be this consistent hitter based on all the data we have on him is probably the wrong expectation, right? Like until he proves otherwise, he's a guy that until he proves otherwise, he's a guy that goes through his cold spells and kind of up and down throughout the season. I think that's not a wrong thing to say about him. I think he can be a guy that's a lot more consistent, but he's got to prove it.
Yeah. I've loved the chat this entire show. There's so
Just
many
all over the place.
so many bold predictions or just like the normal complaining. Omar says Mike Tauchman hits 30 homers next year.
Oh, wow.
That's bold. That might be the boldest thing that I've seen in this entire chat.
None of our predictions hold a candle to that.
No.
Omar, I respect
absolutely
you.
not.
Yeah.
Respectfully,
out
I
there.
disagree, but man, I'd love to dream about that. We'll get 2 summers of Mike Tauchman.
What would the
case.
scenario be where you have Mike Tauchman getting 30
There'd have to be a
home runs?
lot of
Something
injuries,
is-
man.
Yeah.
A lot
Getting
of
the
injuries.
plate appearances to hit 30.
I don't know if that would, does that mean things have gone well or just really badly? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't want to really think about it. I'll be very sick. Okay, Sarah, let's talk about Luke's. What were Luke's 3 he put in there?
I don't
He
even
said
remember what
that
they were.
he said that he was going to be shredded.
Here
And
it
he
is.
would be-
Here, I
he-
got it up.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start with the first one. He says Cody owns more Jordans than Cubs do wins, which I would love to have that many pairs of Jordans. I said off air whenever we were looking at it, or we were talking about it, I think I have like anywhere between 10 to 15. So if the Cubs
you got to increase
lose a historic amount of games, I guess that might hit. So that's very bold. Yeah. That's definitely the boldest thing.
So maybe he's just banking on you buying a whole bunch more shoes this year.
Well, you know, I need a raise, guys. I'm gonna need a raise if that's.
Gotta get Cody some more shoes. Yeah.
His second one is I'm shredded by June. Take over closer's role. There you go, Godfather.
I am rooting for this.
Yeah, I'm rooting for that too. I would love to see a shredded Luke Stuckmeyer walking around this place.
Just AG1 every day.
Yeah, the AG1. He's going to Midtown Athletic Club.
Oh
my God,
he's doing shows. His veins are just like sticking out of his sleeves.
Yes, absolutely. And then Ryan regretfully informs the BWAA that he won't be part of the club. Respectfully.
So he said BWAABW. I'm not sure what he's talking about. I Googled it. Nothing's really coming up what that could stand for.
Yeah, I just copy and pasted that.
Yeah,
I didn't know what it meant.
It's a classic Luke Stuckmeyer typo.
I don't know what that is. If it is a nerd club, I'm not part of it. So,
should we make up what that acronym is?
Baseball Winners Association of America.
Luke's just home alone,
Something.
like making things
with his
up.
2 kids.
I don't know what that last BW could stand for.
Maybe his kid typed that one.
Yeah. Again, at the end, he ends it with respectfully.
Respectfully, though.
Respectfully.
Hey, I'd like to withdraw myself.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got a few minutes left. Let's do these ads, and then we can close out the show. Ryan. ComEd.
Let me.
I'm gonna let you start this one.
Let me talk about ComEd real quick. I don't know what I did to my phone, but all right. Let me tell you about ComEd, everyone. It's getting easier for businesses to switch to electric vehicles. That's something we can all get behind for the health of the planet and for the well-being of all of us who share it.
Yeah, the electric grid is evolving to meet your cleaner energy needs as we all move with confidence toward an electric tomorrow. Whether you have one delivery van or a whole fleet of shipping trucks, ComEd can help guide you to make the changes that make sense.
All right, I'm a little confused, Cody. Maybe you can, clear things up for me. What should business owners do?
Well, Ryan, Chat, Jared, Sarah, you should all go to ComEd.com/clean. All right, to learn more about the resources, fleet rebates, and infrastructure incentives available to help businesses go electric. If you own a business, don't wait. Start making your plan today to switch to electric vehicles. Good for business, good for the planet, good for all of us. Go to ComEd.com/clean.
I was reading the chat. I wasn't really paying attention. Did you say ComEd.com/clean?
Yeah, go now and see how going electric connects us to a better way of doing business and a better future for generations to come. And after you go to ComEd.com/clean, or maybe while you're going there, you can crack open a nice Goose Island while you're sitting at your computer doing that, right? I'm a good double. I can double task. You know what I mean? I have no issue with that. CHGO supported by Goose Island Beer Company, Chicago's beer since 1988. They got the beer roster. We got it all over this office. We got the Beer Hug series, which is one of my favorites. The tropical one, 9.9%. I mean that's a doozy in the summer for sure. Oktoberfest. I think that's still in season, right? I assume it's still in season. The 312, obviously, is a classic. The Old Faithful, like Ryan said. And, of course, Full Pocket Pilsner, my favorite one to do beer bats, because the Cubs are going to win 95 games next year.
I mean,
and we'll do 95 beer bats.
I look at this beer roster. That's a 162-game winning roster right there, if you ask me.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And if you are looking for something seasonal, and if you have not tried the Goose Island Christmas Ale yet, their Christmas IPA, it is solid. So while you still
have not tried it yet,
go get that one.
While it's still the holidays.
Yes, it's still Christmas time. So go get that Goose Island Christmas IPA. It is fantastic.
All in all, it's just all great beer, and I will emphasize that every time I do this ad. Grab your ultra fresh brewery exclusive beers at Goose Island's Original Brew House from their tap room on Fulton Street in Westtown. A very nice tap house, by the way. Goose Island Beer Company, Chicago's beer.
Chicago's beer.
All right. So I think our bowl predictions were good.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Could have been bolder, but you know.
Could have been bolder. Maybe we felt like we were too bold last year.
I don't know.
I feel like Luke might have gotten
Yeah.
a little bit bolder considering what he did send us about
Getting shredded and
getting
becoming a
shredded
closer.
and me having more shoes than Cubs wins.
All right, new bold prediction. Boldest prediction I'll go. Cade Horton starts multiple playoff games for the Cubs this year.
Oh, there you go. There was a lot of Cade Horton hype in there.
Hopefully that makes Edward happy.
Yeah.
You're going real big with that. So it's a good one.
Bold.
It's a good one. But yeah, I think you have to kind of walk the line between, this is a bit of a stretch, but it's still realistic. Yeah. So it'll be fun to check in on these when the time comes down the road.
We always do our
see how we did.
We always do like our preseason predictions too. We always we put it up on allchgo.com too. So we'll have these predictions on top of the entire league predictions and other Cubs predictions once we know what this roster looks like at spring training. So
I think that's it's worth keeping in mind, and I know it's come up in the chat a lot, and it's a fair complaint at this point because the Cubs have not really been active at all. We were talking before the show about the tweet that I'm sure a lot of people saw. The Cubs are the only team that have not added a major league player via trade or signing yet.
Yeah.
It's still December. There's still a lot of time for that to happen. So is the roster on opening day going to look very much like what we have now? No, I think there's going to be some significant additions. But yeah, if you're sitting here right now, and again, I've seen the people in the chat feeling very frustrated, and I think it's fair to feel that way, but just look at the calendar. It's December 28th. There's a lot that's still going to happen. So don't give up on them just yet.
my other bold prediction is that Gary will move off the Jake Slaughter train by the end of 2024. By the end of 2024, Gary will be off the Jake Slaughter train.
Because he's debuted and...
Either he debuted and sucked, not that I'm rooting for that, or the Cubs have a third baseman that we all are happy with.
And so, right, and so you're not thinking about the prospect
you're not thinking
anymore.
about Jake Slaughter.
All right.
There you go, Gary. There's your
Gary's
Slaughter prediction.
For Gary's sake, I'm hoping Jake Slaughter comes up and is just an absolute beast because, you know, Gary's been rooting for this for a long time.
He has been rooting for him. So. And if Jake Slaughter does somehow debut and steals my heart, I will give Gary all the credit in the world. He will get more credit than I've ever given anyone else in the YouTube chat credit because he has been standing Jake Slaughter for a year and a half.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Solid
since we,
months.
I think, started the show or right around there.
Yeah.
Gary's been on the Slaughter.
And hey, I have those types of players too. So I hear you. Keegan Thompson, for example. So, okay, I see you're motioning something at me, Sarah.
CHGO Blackhawks is on at 2:30.
Yeah.
So make sure everyone tunes
stick
into
around.
that.
Yeah, big win yesterday, I believe.
Huge
That
win.
beautiful
Yeah.
Connor Bedard goal.
Right?
Yeah.
3-on-1.
hit
That was
the
insane.
game-winning goal. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, speaking of that, I saw like the Blackhawks, they tweeted like, Connor Bedard is a Chicago Blackhawk. Like, I feel like they tweet that like every time he does something. So next year, I'm going to be the guy who's like every time PCA does something, I'm just going to tweet, Pete Crow Armstrong is a Chicago Cub. And it could just be like literally anything random. Like, what's her name? Sam, I can't pronounce her last name. The girl, the elder lady who always tweets the pictures of people arriving to Wrigley, of players arriving to Wrigley.
yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
She's one of the sweetest ladies I've ever met, by the way.
She is. Yeah.
Every time she tweets a picture of him arriving to Wrigley next year, I'm just going to quote tweet with, Pete Crow Armstrong is a Chicago Cub, because he's just doing something. So that's another bold prediction for 2024. Anyway, this is our last show, at least in studio for this year.
For 2023.
It was a lot of fun, and I appreciate all y'all for being here.
Yeah,
So.
2023 was a much better year than 2022
Things
on the
are
show
looking
for
up.
sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, appreciate everyone that, you know, comes into the YouTube chat, likes, subscribes our show, listens to us wherever you get your podcasts, read mine and Jared's stuff on ALLCITY.com. It's always fun, man.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
So
Corey and
Brennan tomorrow, but we'll be back on Monday. So
We'll be back on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, New Year's Day is
Monday.
on
We'll be back-
Monday.
Yep.
Sorry. We'll be back
on
Tuesday.
and we'll be in 2024.
Yeah. Looking forward to
Crazy.
it. Thanks to everyone for checking out CHGO Cubs Podcast.
Thanks, Jared, for joining us.
Thanks,
today,
Jared,
for sure.
again for joining us, man. You're always
Good to be
welcome
with
here.
you guys.
Yeah,
It's always fun.
absolutely. Again, thanks to everyone. Hit the like button on your way out. We had like over 100 people watching and only 45 likes on here. So hit the like button on your way out. Please tell your friends they're looking for a Cubs podcast to, get through the pain of the lack of anything happening. This is the place to be. Absolutely. There's no other place to be, in my personal opinion. It's also a very biased opinion, but don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
True.
We'll see you in 2024. Fly W.
Have a safe New Year's.
We all silly like the mayor.